with us. My name is Karen Wright-Marsh. I'm the Executive Director of Theological Horizons, and it's my great pleasure to welcome each and every one of you to tonight's Deeper Dialogue at the University of Virginia. This is the second in a series of Deeper Dialogues hosted by Theological Horizons in partnership with Essential Partners, and it is generously funded by the John Templeton Foundation and Cindy Brinker Simmons. I want to especially thank you for entering into this space, into this new experience of reflective, structured dialogue. And so happy to see some returners who had a good experience and are here for more. And to you brave ones who are coming for the first time, welcome. Your facilitators tonight are Mary Dryden and Max, Jen, Lachlan, Caroline, Britt, and Tanvi. So you are in good hands. And I'd like to introduce briefly our friend Tiara Marshall. She has been an incredible coach and guide from Essential Partners. Welcome, Tiara.
Thanks very much, Karen. Super excited for the dialogue you guys are going to have tonight.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. Well, here at the University of Virginia, we are developing what we hope will be a generative dialogue model for other colleges and universities. And so as in all new ventures, we're learning together, as you can tell from our forays into late sharing of links and technology and learning to facilitate together and have these conversations. We're hoping very much that this will give each of us opportunities not to persuade one another or solve each other's problems, but to share tonight, to listen, to learn from each other's experiences. And of course, each of us here at the university plays a different role. Some of you are faculty, or staff, or administrators, but we arrive tonight into this space as whole, multifaceted, and complex people. To meet one another with curiosity, to meet one another with compassion, and to leave this evening with a sense of connection with one another. And we hope tonight as well that the dialogue will begin a friendship for you with Theological Horizons. You're always welcome to the weekly lunches in the garden of the Bonhoeffer House, the vintage lunches on University Circle. We're also live streaming on Facebook and Instagram. At Thursday's Faith and Work Forum this week, it's a virtual event to any conversations that we have at the intersection of faith, thought, and life. So if you're interested in joining us, you can sign up at our website, theologicalhorizons.org. And again, if you haven't done so, please check your screen name, add your pronouns if you like, fill out the survey, and let's settle into our consideration tonight of the theme, Inspiration, Following People of Courage. We hear first from our Spark speaker, Carolyn Mitchell-Dillard, and then we will move into small groups, pre-assigned breakout rooms. It is my great pleasure to introduce my friend Carolyn Mitchell-Dillard. She has been a part of the University of Virginia family for nearly 20 years. She is the University Community Liaison and in the Division for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at the Center for Community Partnerships at UVA. And among her many roles here, Carolyn is a member of the President's Commission on the University in the Age of Segregation. She has served on the President's Commission on Slavery, and she is on the board of the Descendants of Enslaved Communities at the University of Virginia. She is a native and a lifelong resident of Keswick, Virginia, where she lives with her family. And Carolyn is also the first female pastor at the historic Zion Hill Baptist Church that was established in 1870. So we welcome you warmly, Carolyn. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you all. I am honored to be here. I am excited about being a spark. I'm excited about the word inspiration. I'm going to ask all of us if we could just center ourselves for a moment. You know, anything that's on your mind that you have to do later or anything that is awaiting you, whether it's homework, I just ask you for these few minutes to just concentrate on yourself. Let this time be about you. and what you need to center you and to really focus on what inspires you. Thank you all. So my personal definition of inspiration. Inspiration is an internal muse that is ignited, just like I'm the spark for this evening. It's ignited from a lived experience through or by one or more of our five senses: sight, touch, hearing, smell, and taste. Whether you saw a huge wave in the ocean or witnessed a loved one transition from life, whether you were emotionally touched by a moving poem or a song, or from having a physically experienced an inappropriate touch, whether you heard the sound of a newborn's cry or heard the sound of an emergency vehicle, whether you remember the smell of grandma's house or the embarrassing smell of burning an important dinner, or whether you remember the first time you tasted a meal in a restaurant and you thought, oh my gosh, I can make that so much better. I know what it needs. I know the ingredients, and you ran home to make it. Or if you've tasted dirt in your mouth from falling hard to the ground. These senses have almost likely inspired you all to make a choice in your life, to do something, to move or make a change, to grow, to help, to seek, to learn, even from a negative experience. Something has inspired you in some way. But I believe that in order to be a person who inspires confidence and trust in people, we must be first willing to work towards being our true, authentic selves, which includes transparency. My example of this tonight is the story of the inception of the descendants of enslaved communities at UVA. This group was birthed out of the desire to hold space for truth-telling and holding space for others' truth of a history of slavery where our great-grandparents labored on plantations here in Central Virginia. My personal inspiration has transformed over the past 2 years. In July, I will be 56 years old. So I say that to say you never stop growing, you never stop learning, you never stop evolving. I was invited by historian, researcher, and genealogist Shelley Murphy to meet with a group of descendants at Seaville Coffee a few years ago. My invitation came as a representative of UVA as the university community liaison. For some background, I grew up in a white, iron-gated community of Keswick with its majestic homes on hundreds of acres, manicured fields where show horses galloped and performed ad lib behind fences on Route 22, where the blessing of the hounds and the riders were honored each year at Thanksgiving. But I noticed that it neglected to honor those who cared and fed the rider, who groomed the horses, and who were valued less than the hounds. My family members worked on and in those plantation homes, which now are politely have been changed their names to manors. My mother Bernice, who is now 91 years loved, often told stories of being a little girl who spent many Sundays with her grandmother, Mary Cross Chapman, walking to and visiting Grace Episcopal Church, but having to sit in the balcony simply because their beautiful melanin-filled brown skin that had been kissed by the sun clashed with the pure white skin of the parishioners. My parents, Kenneth and Bernice, worked hard, as did their parents, to ensure that their children would have the opportunity to sit where they wanted. It wasn't until my cousin, historian and filmmaker, Lorenzo Dickerson, who has devoted his life to telling the true stories and unveiling even the emotionally scarred pieces of our own family history, that I began to truly embrace the accounts told of my great-grandparents, Jefferson and Ann Cross, who were enslaved at Castle Hill. Castle Hill was a plantation, and now it's a renowned cidery. Even with Lorenzo's films and vast vault of history and pictures, I still didn't feel the impact of my desire to embrace the proud history of my own descendancy. So what inspired me? Watching the construction of the memorial to enslaved laborers, walking through the mud and seeing the granite walls arrive and being placed, standing beside someone who neglected to even think, oh, this is a Black woman standing beside me who may be affected by what I say, who said, oh, I read about this person on the wall. He was a really good boy. Who then went on to say, oh yeah, to the person they were talking to, I remember that lynching. Remember that lynching that happened? And all I could do was hold my breath. My tears fell, and I politely walked away. Seeing the names of the enslaved, and more importantly, the discounted thousands of nameless memory markers, running my hands over the letters that had been sandblasted into the granite, visualizing that their labor was just that. No names, no surnames, brick mason, laundress, servant, stableman. But I could hear them call out their names to me. That's what inspired me to become dedicated to descendant engagement at the University of Virginia, to make a commitment to those names on the memorial, to locate their family members, and to strive to unite families who have been torn apart by slavery. I was offered just last week an opportunity, as many others were, the opportunity to share what the memorial to enslaved laborers means to me. I'd like to share that with you tonight. What the memorial to enslaved laborers at the University of Virginia means to me is an opportunity to answer the deafening, silent call of the ancestors. As I've stood, cried, and grieved in the midst of the memorial to enslaved laborers encamped by slopes of granite, I've heard the voices of the ancestors, those enslaved calling out, but who can only be heard by those willing to receive. They are calling out their God-given names, those given by their endearing mothers and grandmothers who hoped and prayed that the life of their child would be better and greater than all they could imagine. I hear the ancestors calling out their names because on that wall, their names can't be found. They are nameless and only identified by the laborious nature of their occupations, imposed and mandated by their masters. My heart hears them calling out to their descendants. Yes, that call is to each of us here tonight to keep going, keep searching, keep uniting, keep reclaiming, keep honoring, and strive to repair the generational trauma embedded by hundreds of years of physical, emotional, and spiritual bondage. To those enslaved names on the wall, and to those whose names we promise to identify, we are here because of you, and we are grateful for your endurance, for your strength, for your perseverance, and for your love. We continue to honor you and to find ourselves because we still are not yet free. So tonight I ask you, what inspires you? Thank you.
Carolyn Mitchell Dillard, thank you for sparking us, for inspiring us, for your own story of inspiration. We're so grateful and look forward to getting to know you better and one another.